Please put your hands together for the director and star of Cosmopolis, Mr. David Cronenberg and Robert Pattinson. Welcome. Wow. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
I guess the obvious place to start would be kind of the beginning, really, and Cosmopolis. What it was that drew you to this book, and also what drew you to Robert for the role as well.
Well, I like to say that Rob was cheap and available, and for an independent film production, those are both important things. But it was the dialogue in Don DeLillo's novel that I just thought it would be fantastic to hear this dialogue spoken by wonderful actors, and then I had to go look for wonderful actors, and that's how I stumbled accidentally across Rob, because I just thought the charisma that he has, that's obvious in his films, was necessary for this film because the character that he plays is in absolutely every scene. And it's very rare that you have that structure even with films with big stars, So you have to have somebody who has the chops to be interesting and to be charismatic and to modulate through a whole movie.
Yeah. And what about for you, Rob? Was it kind of an obvious choice when David got in touch to take on the material? And
yeah. I think, yeah, well, it wasn't not an obvious choice, I don't think. For him or me, I don't think. I mean, it's not an obvious movie.
Yeah.
But I think that's one of the most appealing things about it. It's pretty, you're not going to see another Cosmopolis, hopefully, for a while.
Yeah. Yep. Where did you find the character of Eric Packer? Because you've talked about him being more of a sort of an idea than...
yeah, I mean, I kind of disagree with myself now.
He was completely wrong about that.
I could see your reaction to it when I said
it. I winced because I've been telling people that the abstract concept is no way for no actor could do that.
I think that's. I just had it in my head and I didn't know what to say. Where did I find him? I don't know. There was a kind of. There's a feeling in the words. I mean, there's something in the rhythm of it that once you read it like 100 times, something starts to reverberate. And it's always the best when you don't really know what that is. What its power is.
if you think of it as an actual person, who you all probably are, you don't think of yourself as a character. You don't think of yourself as having meaning compared with something else, And in a way, with actors, I think that's the best way to approach a character is just let him live in the movie with the dialogue, with the other people interacting, and then the meaning and the will take care of itself.
Yeah. You talked earlier about David's dry sense of humour. How was it sort of starting off working? You mentioned that you were doing one takes by the end of the film, by the end of the shoot. Was that pretty nerve-wracking to do and quite different from your work on other films before?
Yeah, but after a while you kind of... It's nice, it's fun. You feel like you're actually doing something right. Whereas most of the time sometimes if someone's doing a lot of takes, especially from a lot of different angles, that you're thinking, well, they're just hoping they're just shooting in the dark and they're hoping something will come out of it.
Yeah.
So it builds confidence.
You've been a David Cronenberg fan for a long time, I know. I guess there's people that are going to come and see Cosmopolis that are sort of know you from Twilight. Are there David Cronenberg films that you'd recommend they go out and watch after seeing this? Would there be one in particular that you could kind of point them towards? Is there one?
Hey, that puts you on the spot.
Does it?
He actually hasn't seen any of my movies. He lies a lot.
I would probably say Videodrome or Dead Ringers. Like those are my favorite ones. But this is probably pretty
good.
Favorite.
Maybe Crash.
Yeah.
My Crash, not the Paul Haggis Oscar-winning Crash.
The
good Crash.
Let's take a look at a clip from the film.
I like it.
Could you maybe put that scene into the context of the movie, because that's kind of close to the beginning. Eric's about to embark on this cross-town journey to try and get his hair cut. And this is probably one of the few scenes of the first half of the film that's set actually outside of the limo.
Yes, that's right.
That's a good point. Why is that outside of the limo?
It's outside the limo because in the novel it's outside the limo, and I think it was a nice preparation for settling in, but really I never questioned that because after the lunch, outside the lunch, so much of the movie takes place in the limo. You think the audience will be kind of not desperate, but there will be a nice opening out every once in a while to be actually on the street.
Yeah.
And then the contrast between that and the weird confines of this strange sort of spaceship-like limo, I think the contrast is terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I love about it is it feels like a true New York movie, and yet you shot it all in Toronto.
Yes, that's
using green screen. And
yes, the magic of digital cinema. Really, yeah.
But it's a long way from shivers and scanners, I guess, to be working around all of this.
Everything. I mean, it's sort of like what happens to Eric Packer. He lives in abstraction. He lives a kind of digital life in his head, a virtual life.
Yeah.
And there we are making a movie that creates a virtual New York.
Yeah.
That's as convincing as the real New York, really, cinematically. Yeah.
Well, what was it like to be inside? Because you were mentioning that the claustrophobia wasn't really a problem from a directorial point of view, but from an acting point of view, are you sitting there going, because you have Juliette Binoche is coming in and all these, Jay Baruchel as well, share scenes, but you're there pretty much the entire time. And in a kind of sedentary role, you're sort of sitting at the back of the limo, presiding over this almost sci-fi environment. Is that a challenge as an actor to kind of generate the energy and...
Yeah, it was a little worrying before we started shooting when I think the Juliette Binoche scene was supposed to be outside the limo, and David said a couple of days before we started shooting, like, I'm going to put that in as well. So it's pretty much just bump it up to about 95% of the movie. But there's something quite nice about it, I think. The only scene I was a little worried was the very first scene because I had sunglasses on and I'd spent so much time taking away every definable characteristic. I thought in the suit I wanted it to be so uniform, so kind of plain.
Yeah.
Even his watch, his tie, everything, his haircut, anything which could say anything about himself, I wanted it to be gone. And then you suddenly realize you're sitting there, you can't move, you hardly have any lines.
Yeah.
You have completely tinted out black sunglasses.
Yeah.
and you've totally eliminated every device you have as an actor, and you're sitting there kind of, and I noticed Dave was doing a lot of reaction shots, and I'm like, I'm not going to look like anything. I have a totally blank face. But
you're channeling Arnie from Terminator, perhaps.
Yeah, but I mean, there was something happening, but I don't know quite what it was.
There was a lot happening. And there is. But the thing is that the moment you take the sunglasses off, it's suddenly like this big moment on the screen. It has an effect.
It's a phenomenal, I have to say, a phenomenal performance, and there's something that he's almost kind of sunk back inside himself a little bit. This guy Eric Packer, and did you see a connection with some of David's previous films? Because there is this thing of Cronenbergian sort of theme of where fantasy and reality kind of mingle. Was that a big kind of part of the character for you, especially towards the end of the film?
I think the one thing which I've only noticed after thinking about it for a while, I don't know, I don't want to be precocious about it, but there's a sort of sadness in the movie, which I think there's quite a lot of sadness in a lot of your movies, which it's not acknowledged really, but that's the kind. I hadn't really noticed it until I saw Cosmopolis and didn't really realize that, it's quite melancholic.
Yeah, it's true. It sort of sneaks up on you. And I think you think the movie is kind of cold and clinical at first, and you're dealing with these people who are kind of disconnected from their emotions. Even the scenes with his wife. I mean, in a way, his wife is really very much like him.
Yeah.
At a certain point, he says, this is how people talk, isn't it? This is how people have a conversation. And she says, how would I know? Because she's like him. She doesn't have normal conversation. And yet, by the end of the movie, there's a real emotional kick and a weird sadness. And I think that's absolutely accurate. And I think it really doesn't.
Yeah.
The book struck me that way, and I was really happy at the end of the movie to feel that the movie did do that as well.
Yeah.
I was thinking as well, there's a certain thing, some filmmakers, people say that their films are really a part of them when they already exist, and all of them are always a part of them. Your movies, in that same similar sort of vein, I was thinking earlier, they're like, you have children, children which you put in, a baby which you put in a basket and let go down the river.
But it is. I mean, you are incredibly connected with this child genetically and every other way, and that at a certain point it leaves and becomes its own creature and has its own life apart from you. Really, I mean, I can't control the future of Cosmopolis any more than I can control the future of the children and grandchildren that I actually do have and try to control.
You're not putting them in the river and just floating them off.
I threaten them with that.
Before I throw it out to the audience for some questions, you are talking about potentially working again together.
Yeah.
Can you kind of update us on where you?
I said that if Rob came up with the money, I would do a movie with him. No, I mean, I've done 3 movies with Viggo Mortensen. I really love him, and we connected in a very deep way. And frankly, I feel a similar connection with Rob. And I think I'm not finished working with him. I don't think it's enough to just do this one movie. And then, of course, my dream is to have Viggo and Rob in the same movie, because I think they'd be fantastic together. And so I'm kind of just thinking about that. I don't have a movie in mind particularly, but I cannot allow myself to believe that we will never work again together. So I don't think in those terms.
Okay. Right. Some questions. Does anyone have a question? Put your hands up if you do. Lady just down here. Yeah. Oh,
she's
hold on 1
stunned.
second.
She's shocked.
What was your favourite scene to shoot in Cosmopolis?
Probably the
Almost
almost every scene. I feel inappropriate saying it. I like a lot of the scenes with Sarah Gadon, who plays my wife. I think they're really fun, and I think they're pretty good scenes.
You mentioned you were disappointed that in DeLillo's book, you get tasered. Eric gets tasered.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I don't think in the book you see him get tasered.
No,
no.
I think
it ends this way. He
yeah.
says exactly as in the movie. Give
I
me
didn't-
all the voltage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The gun holds, and you don't actually ever know if he ever really was or not. You assume he was, but you don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I was pretty rigorous. Pretty
I like the idea of getting tasered though. I was looking forward to that.
We could have done that at the rap party if you had wanted.
There's still time.
All you had to do was ask.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
First of all, I want to tell you that we are very proud of you. And second, how was your experience in Cannes?
It was amazing. I mean, this whole project was a kind of a shock to me, and getting it out of the blue, and then to get into Cannes. I thought maybe I'd get a movie into Cannes in about 10 or 15 years, and so to get it this year is unbelievable. And also, more importantly, I like the film. I like watching it. I can watch it as a movie. I can imagine myself paying for a ticket and watching it again. So that's a really great feeling. That.
Anyone towards the back? I'm just having.
Hi. This text is a lot about like the character. I mean, at least the way I see it is a lot about like the liberation of the mind through the body at the end of the story, right? So I'm quite interested in that compared to all the movies that you've done in the past. Like, how does that relate to the evolution of that theme that you had throughout all the movies of your career?
Honestly, I don't really think in those terms. I mean, I don't think about my career. because I don't have to worry about the connections amongst my films, because I know that there will be some, and they just sort of take care of themselves. So I actually haven't given any thought to what you're talking about. I think you could probably do a better analysis of my films than I can, honestly. I'm not trying to be evasive. It's just that some people think that I come to a new movie thinking about how it connects with my other movies. But I actually don't. I mean, the wonderful thing about doing a new movie is you forget all your other movies, you know? And I forget Robert's other movies, and I forget Paul Giamatti's other movies, because suddenly we're there making a new thing. And that's the excitement, you know? And the connections, of course there are some connections, naturally. But it's not what induces me to make the movie, and that actually the realization, the awareness of those connections doesn't help me make the new movie. You understand?
Mm.
Okay.
You had tough times sort of starting out making films like Shivers and Scanners. You're talking about...
It's still tough times.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
No, it really is. It's still tough times. I mean, the movie that Rob and I have been talking about doing is... I've been trying to make that movie for 5 years.
Yeah.
And it's not easy doing any movie. I mean, it's amazing that Cosmopolis got made so quickly, really. And it only took about 3.5 years. Because it's unusual, because it's difficult, because it's not mainstream, and it's not really, you know, necessarily what everybody expects.
Yeah.
So anything that interests me seems to be a very difficult sell, you know, difficult film to make. But go ahead.
I was just going to say that, I mean, in the case of Cosmopolis, it's kind of almost works in your favour, because it really feels like an incredibly zeitgeisty film, this. And thinking that DeLillo wrote it in 2003, and since then you've had, you know, the collapse on Wall Street, the Occupy movement, even the cream pie, is, you know, has kind of happened.
That's right. I mean, that's true. The movie is incredibly current, in the current news. But it's an accident, you know.
But it's not political.
And it can be the reverse can happen, you know. It can backfire on you. I mean, just for example, I did a movie called M. Butterfly, and at the same time there was another movie about homosexuality in the Peking opera. It came out at the same time, and I thought, how can that be? You know, how can two movies about this obscure subject come out at the same time? And there was also The Crying Game, which was also about a man who is deceptively looks like a woman, and you know,
that seems to happen a lot in Hollywood. It's bizarre,
but those weren't even Hollywood movies. None of them. No, so it's a strange. Maybe I deserve this, you know, where the movie we did, which is sort of obscure and irrelevant, comes out at a moment when it's very relevant and not obscure. You know, that maybe it'll help people. People will be interested because it's of the topicality.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Just want to get one at the back. There's a hand wiggling over there.
Could be a severed hand.
It could be a.
My question is, how was your relationship like with the book when it came to directing the film and preparing for your role?
What's that? Oh, my relationship or David's relationship?
Both of you.
Oh. I hadn't read any DeLillo before I read the script, and so the script the dialect seemed incredibly foreign to me. And when you read a bit more, you read his other books, and there's a similar cadence in it. So I was just like, what is this? When I first read it, and that almost immediately made me want to do it, just because it was fresh. And how did I prepare for it? I mean, to be honest, you couldn't really do it in a conventional way. I tried everything I could to try and prepare for it like I would another movie. You know, thinking where the guy comes from and everything, but nothing really was relevant. It was just from the first day on set, a rhythm. We kind of established a rhythm over the first few days, and then it kind of developed from there. But it's one of the only movies where a lot of directors say they want to have things evolve organically, and they're just lying, basically. But this was genuinely, I mean, it really felt like it was kind of growing as we were doing it, which was interesting.
Yeah, for me also, I mean, I had read a lot of Don DeLillo's books before, but not Cosmopolis, and as I said, it was the dialogue, you know, that made me think this could be a movie. And then, but ultimately, though, once I had the script, and I wrote it very quickly. I mean, really, it only took 6 days to write the script, and it can take a year or 2 years often to write a script. We never looked back, you know. We never. After that, I don't refer to the book anymore, because you have to accept, and I know this from adapting books by Stephen King and William Burroughs and J.G. Ballard and Patrick McGrath, that you are creating a new thing. It is not the same as the book. It cannot be the same. So it's a kind of weird hybrid fusion of your sensibility and the writer's. And once you accept that, you've got the script, you forget about the novel, you know, and now you just go with your actors, with your crew, with everybody, and you create this new thing. And you know that because the script has its hooks into the novel, that there will be those legitimate connections between the movie you make and the book. But that's as far as it goes, though, really.
Even Don was saying the scene between Eric and Benno at the end was different to how it was in the book. I mean, in a good way.
Yeah.
He was saying, I mean, it's not, the relationship's different. It's a different balance of power.
Yes, it's interesting because the dialogue is exactly the same as it is in the book, in that scene, and well, all the scenes, and yet the way the actors play it and where the camera is and so on. There's a lot of even by being absolutely faithful to the dialogue. I mean, I didn't want any improvisation by the actors. I really wanted them to say the dialogue as it was. But even within that, there is so much that an actor can do with intonation, with movement, with body movement, with choreography, everything else, head angle, that it inevitably is going to be different from what the writer thought he was writing, you know. But that's, for a good writer, that's exciting. I mean, Don loved the movie, and he wasn't upset by things that were different. I think he was rather excited by that, you know.
I think we've got time for one more question. Lady just here.
I have a question about the last scene in the movie with Paul and Robert, because it is a really intense scene, I think, with lots of different emotions. And my question is, how do you get prepared to play such a scene? Because I can think you come just to the set and say, okay, let's go, because it's really, really intense to watch it.
We kind of just turned up and said, okay, let's go.
Well, it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, see, I don't do storyboards or anything. I really want the collaboration of my actors in how the scene flows and how it moves. And so we start by saying, okay, where are we going to play this scene? Okay, he has to kick through the door, and then Paul is in the toilet, and it goes. But after that, it's where do they move, and how do they move, and when do they get up, and when do and we just fake it basically.
We hadn't even seen the set until that day. I remember the one thought I had. I got so relaxed by that point, like even though it was a 22-page scene or something. I had one idea the night before, which was saying the line about the toilet into the toilet, and that was literally my only idea. And then we got to the set, and it wasn't a toilet; it was like a porta potty. And so, I mean, I was just saying that idea to you, and he's like, "Yeah, go in the porta potty." And it was the three of the key lines in the movie. I mean, like the answer to the movie. And I was inside the porta potty in a wide shot. And Dave was just like, yeah, I like it. Let's move on. And I'm like, I did that kind of as a joke.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, I could have done a close-up, but I really thought it was very effective just staying away and then letting the actors come towards us afterwards. And that's something that was spontaneous. I didn't plan it. I didn't have any idea how we were going to do it. And it's when I hear the actors and I say, it's actually really effective doing it the way they did it, far away from the camera. There's something wonderful about that distance, and there are no rules to guide you really. For a director, it's your experience as a director, but there's no rule book that says this is how you do this scene. You're making it up.
Wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming, and please put your hands together for David Cronenberg and Robert Pattinson.
Well, you hear this dialogue spoken by wonderful actors, and then I had to go look for wonderful actors, and that's how I stumbled accidentally across Rob, because I just thought the charisma that he has, that's obvious in his films, was necessary for this film, because the character that he plays is in absolutely every scene. And it's very rare that you have that structure, even with films with big stars, you know. So you have to have somebody who has the chops to be interesting and to be charismatic and to modulate through a whole movie.
Yeah. And what about for you, Rob? Was it kind of an obvious choice when David got in touch to take on the material? And
yeah, I think, yeah, well, it wasn't not an obvious choice, I don't think. For him or me, I don't think. I mean, it's not...
Please put your hands together for the director and star of Cosmopolis, Mr. David Cronenberg and Robert Pattinson. Welcome.
Wow.
Welcome, guys.
Hello.
I guess the obvious place to start would be kind of the beginning, really, and Cosmopolis. What it was that drew you to this book, and also what drew you to Robert for the role as well.
Well, I like to say that Rob was cheap and available. And for an independent film production, those are both important things. But it was the dialogue in Don DeLillo's novel that I just thought it would be fantastic to
read it like 100 times. Something starts to reverberate.
Yeah,
and it's always the best when you don't really know what that is.
Sure.
What its
I
power
mean,
is.
if you think of it as an actual person, who you all probably are. You don't think of yourself as a character. You don't think of yourself as having meaning compared with something else, you know. And in a way, with actors, I think that's the best way to approach a character is just let him live in the movie with the dialogue, with the other people interacting, and then the meaning and the will take care of itself. You know?
Yeah. You talked earlier about David's dry sense of humour. How was it, sort of starting off working? You mentioned that you were doing one takes by the end of the film, by the end of the shoot. Was that pretty nerve-wracking to do and quite different from your work on other films before?
Not an obvious movie.
Yeah.
But I think that's one of the most appealing things about it. It's pretty, you're not going to see another Cosmopolis, hopefully, for a while.
Yeah. Where did you find the character of Eric Packer? Because you've talked about him being more of a sort of an idea than...
Yeah, I mean, I kind of disagree with myself now.
He was completely wrong about that.
I could see your reaction to it when I said it.
I winced because I've been telling people that the abstract concept is no way for no actor can do that.
I think that's. I just had it in my head. No, I didn't know what to say. Where did I find him? I don't know. There was a kind of there's a feeling in the words. I mean, there's something in the rhythm of it that once you but after a while you kind of it's nice, it's fun. You feel like you're actually doing something right. Whereas most of the time sometimes if someone's doing a lot of takes, especially from a lot of different angles, that you're thinking, well, they're just hoping to they're just shooting in the dark and then hoping something will come out of it.
Yeah.
So it builds confidence.
You've been a David Cronenberg fan for a long time, I know. I guess there's people that are going to come and see Cosmopolis that are sort of know you from Twilight. Are there David Cronenberg films that you'd recommend they go out and watch after seeing this? Would there be one in particular that you could kind of point them towards? Is there one?
Hey, that puts you on the spot.
Does it?
He actually hasn't seen any of my movies. He lies a lot.
I would probably say Videodrome or Dead Ringers. Like those are my favorite ones. But this is probably
pretty
good.
Maybe